So to start, the question, why is it important for me to measure driver productivity? Well, in today's economy, with the fuel prices being as volatile as they have been, it's kind of a question that answers itself. We need to control our costs. And with a typical breakdown of a transportation budget, almost 50% of those dollars going towards the labor spend, any kind of savings you can provide in that bucket really will hit the bottom line. You can see on the right-hand side of the screen typical benefits of the driver productivity program, not just in increasing your driver's actual speed, pace, or skill, but also in some of those metrics that really hit home with those transportation departments. Likely cost per stop, looking at fleet capacity, and for that matter, just overall visibility to the driver and the fleet that is not in a central repository today, that you have to look at disparate systems. Let's talk about the right way to embark on improving your driver productivity and ultimately your profitability. We take a simple 5-step approach when looking at deploying these types of programs to improve driver productivity. Initially, we start with establishing best practices. We like to create a best practice team and get involvement and feedback from all levels of the organization, whether it be the frontline driver, whether it be the individual that's doing the yard moves for you, your supervisors, your transportation manager, or your director of transportation, whatever it may be. The idea is that each individual has their unique perspective on ways to improve customer service, to improve safety, and to improve productivity. And by involving all different people and all different levels in that conversation up front, you really break down the walls of why are they doing this project to me, and you create more of a participative approach. And by the time you end up coming with that best practice you want to roll out to your team, there's no surprises. Everyone's been a part of that conversation and is already on board. Best practices you want to document in an easily understandable format, distribute to the entire team, and then make sure everyone is comfortable and knowledgeable and trained on the importance of those best practices and that SOP. I got a good question that came from one of our customers just this week, actually. When looking at best practices, it's not just about the delivery time. You want to look at from punch in to punch out. That pre-trip operation has a lot of opportunity in terms of the amount of paperwork people deal with, the vehicle inspection, signing in, signing out of onboard computers, location of time clocks. Same thing on the post-trip. So when we look at helping to improve your driver productivity and do a best practice review of your operation, we're truly looking from punch in to punch out all the different activities that driver takes place throughout the course of their day, as well as the office activities and how that affects what they can do in the field. Once the best practices have been established, you want to develop performance metrics around those. So based on those best practices, what's the right amount of time to do the work? It's one thing to provide somebody with a roadmap of the right steps to take. It's another thing to give them the roadmap and then some goals in terms of how much time it should take to do each one of those steps. With today's technology, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, you want to develop multi-determinant metrics that actually flex with the work. A lot of people ask the questions about, hey, this customer requires us to rotate stock. This particular customer has a very long hallway. This customer uses a dock plate or a scissors lift. This customer asks us to wait for them to check in the product at the end versus another one that does all of that during our unload process. We have the ability, and what you want to do is make sure that whatever performance metric puts in place, it's fair, it's accurate, and it's attainable, given that that driver is performing at an industry acceptable skill and pace and following those SOPs that you put out for them to practice. It also helps with the credibility of the program if you're developing those metrics by actually directly observing drivers in the field. So again, that participative approach to the change in the program versus the directive approach. Once those standards have been established and those performance metrics are in place, you want to make sure that they're accurate. Is that metric attainable? Does it flex with the different work content? Are the specific customer requirements applied correctly? Does the system calculate the correct time? Essentially, what we promote is that whoever you embark on these projects with, that they check their own work, but then ultimately your management team, your local resources take part in validating that those standards are fair and accurate. Think about 6 months, 12 months after this project has been rolled out. They're not going to call up the consultant. They're not going to call up Andy and say, Andy, I don't understand how that standard works. They're going to go to your supervisor. They're going to go to your transportation manager and ask the questions to them. This validation process really is the transition of ownership of that standard being the consultant's standard becoming your personal standard. You've bought into it. You feel that they're fair and accurate. You know that your people can meet and exceed those given a good effort, good pace, following those standards, and that this is ultimately what you'll use to manage your business. So keeping drivers, keeping management involved with that validation process up front promotes a lot of credibility and buy-in, and makes sure that the standard will be used to manage the business going forward. Step 4 is looking at a way to recognize individuals for their contribution. Here we're calling out implementing an incentive program. I know right off the bat some people, when they hear incentive programs, get a little bit uneasy. Keep in mind that an incentive program is not always something that needs to be difficult or complex or very challenging to try to calculate. In fact, we actually promote keeping the plan simple. Include metrics other than simply performance. You want to make sure that you're driving the right behaviors and all of the right behaviors, whether it be safety, customer service levels, driving characteristics, quality, in addition to productivity. The last thing we want to do is have a bunch of drivers that are kicking cases off the trailer as they're driving by at 30 miles per hour. We want to make sure that we don't sacrifice that customer service, because they do have a lot of face time with your end consumer, and it's important that they're representing the company in a very good light. We recommend that whatever incentive program that you have in place, whether it be monetary or whether it be just recognition, it may be a preferred shift schedule, it may be a employee of the month parking spot. Whatever it is, tie it out to the pay period so that people can relate the recognition with the behavior. So you don't want the incentive to be 6 months later. Do you remember what you did back in January? You want it to be, thanks for your contribution of going above and beyond. This is how you did last week, and here's the recognition that we're willing to provide you. A couple of points to remember about an incentive program. You will get exactly what you incent. So we alluded to it before, but if you incent productivity and nothing else, you're going to get people that are going very fast and are going to be less conscious about those other important factors like customer service and safety. Incentive programs by themselves are not cures to productivity issues. Usually a productivity issue has a root cause in training or in feedback, in coaching, or in the environment or the equipment that needs to be solved before you actually embark on an incentive program. And finally, an incentive program can actually create a little bit more stress on your management team. If you think about a driver who is now charged and motivated to go out and work above and beyond, and we didn't set them up to win, we weren't prepared for them when they came in, their trailer wasn't ready, you could see them getting a little bit aggravated because you're taking away from their opportunity to earn additional incentive recognition. So keep in mind that the management team needs to be pretty solid and confident in their process to make sure that they're providing the drivers with the opportunity to perform above and beyond. The last step in our 5-step process then is manage the performance results. Now that you're going to have these performance metrics available to you, you want to make sure that you're reviewing those results on a daily and weekly basis. Information by itself isn't going to go make any changes, isn't going to improve your operation. It's what we do with the information that's going to provide and drive those bottom line savings. So communicate those results to the right people Establish a regular communication cycle with the drivers. We recommend a minimum of a weekly, but more often we'd like to see daily feedback, which allows those drivers to really understand how they're doing, so that as they're working through their review period, they get chances to change their behaviors and improve and catch up if they had a bad day at the beginning. Focus on the behavior, not the individual. This is a little bit more on the soft side of coaching and counseling and communication. You want to make sure that you're reinforcing the positive behaviors that you want to promote. So don't take it for granted that people know they're doing a good job. Don't take it for granted that people know that when they say thank you to a customer, that that's something they shouldn't just take for granted. Recognize people for those things and make sure that you thank them for their contribution. On top of that, also redirect behaviors that aren't living up to your desired expectations. This is one of those things where a lot of people want to avoid conflict and avoid any type of friction. It's important that in a job setting, in a customer service oriented environment, in a high performance culture, that everybody understands that we're all working together to improve the company, to improve the customer experience, and that feedback is not necessarily a direct blow to that individual. It's just an opportunity to get better, and that we're trying to provide the best levels to our customers. Either way, no matter how people are doing, make sure you follow up. If you set out an action plan to work with a driver to change their process, make sure you follow up on that process to see how they're doing and provide regular and frequent feedback to establish that new behavior as part of their regular routine. So let's move on a little bit and talk about the technology that supports this program. ProTrack Drivers is state-of-the-art driver management software, which provides both local and corporate management team with the visibility and the tools to be able to report and improve driver performance, resulting in bottom line savings. Just a quick high-level overview of the different functionality. This first slide talks about labor tracking. When we think about tracking, the ability to capture the information, to dynamically calculate the standard based on true size of the order, what customer requirements are at that particular stop, what piece of equipment they're using, and also handling the customer maintenance information, providing graphical reporting, cost to serve reporting, also the ability to do driver manifest reports. This is a lot of data, and it's good, but it doesn't really provide you with information. When we talk about labor management modules versus tracking, we're now taking that data that's been captured, analyzing it for you, and providing you now with analytical tools and the ability to truly manage the workforce versus spending time trying to figure out what happened. This is actually doing the root cause analysis for you and giving you essentially your step one being an action plan to go resolve. Built into ProTrack is driver pay programs, whether they be component pay or route-based pay, truly performance-based dynamic incentives. It also has discipline and configurable alerts. You can look at miles per gallon, you can look at performance, you can look at quality issues in terms of alerts, and essentially let the system do the work for you so that you're not stuck behind a computer finding out what's going out in the field. Also, safety tracking and driver learning curves. Think about different drivers with different tenure, new customers, new hires come into the fold. All those different individuals are going to be performing at different levels based on their experience. Difficult to manage that manually. ProTrack actually manages the learning curves for you so that you can spend, again, your time working with improving people's performance and the operation versus trying to track what people are doing. In any event, and what I'm showing you now is a dashboard sample, what the idea and the name of the game here is visibility. Provide you with information at a glance that makes sense and it's important for you to understand what's going on out in the field on a pretty much real-time basis.